by the decision by the ambulance workers to go on strike. So this is UNISON. The decision to take action and lose a day's pay is tough, but thousands of ambulance staff and NHS colleagues know delays won't lessen, nor waiting times reduce until the government acts on wages. That's why they've taken the difficult decision to strike. So apparently 5 of the 10 ambulance regions have decided to go on strike. And UNISON is only one of 3 unions that represent ambulance staff, of course. So not everybody is going to be going on strike on this. But Debbie, maybe I get your thoughts on this, because it seems to me that with ambulance people going on strike at this point in time, when waiting lists to get into hospital are so long, I'm talking about emergency access to hospital is taking so long, and people queuing up in ambulances outside hospitals at the moment. This isn't going to help. But at the end of the day, they are attempting to highlight this issue. They're saying that pay is the main reason why there are these backlogs with getting people to accident and emergency. I'm not sure that's entirely the case, but I can understand the frustration and their need to take action.
Good afternoon. And with regards to the ambulance and paramedics, nurses traditionally, we've always had a really great, and continue to have a great relationship with paramedics. We work hand in hand with each other. And I'm just going to say it, actually. I'm just going to come out and say, in my opinion, I believe that UNISON, who are representing the ambulance workers, and the RCN, and we'll come on to this in a bit, who are representing the nurses, I believe they're gaslighting them. I don't believe the nurses or the ambulance workers. Yes, of course, pay is part of the problem, but it's certainly not all of the problem. This is about patient safety, and this isn't actually about us having loads of people that are leaving the NHS. They're being driven out of the NHS by the NHS deliberately. So I see why the paramedics, they're not doing the jobs that they're meant to be doing. They're cohorting patients in corridors. We have ambulance corridors now. These are highly qualified, highly skilled people, and we're losing them in droves. And instead of talking about pay, we need to be talking about why are they striking? Why are they leaving? Because I think they're being gaslit by their unions.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a clip from the Royal College of Nursing here, and this is from a couple of weeks ago when they were announcing the nursing strikes, I believe.
Yeah, it is. It's I pulled this bit of clip because it shows Pat Cullen, and I wanted everybody to meet Pat Cullen, who's the head of the RCN. She's a psychiatric nurse by trade. She says that nursing's in her blood. Well, we've probably got the slightly different blood groups here, because I pulled out a piece for her for you to hear, because again, we're getting this same message, pay. And I don't believe, as a nurse and as the nurses that I've spoken to, I don't believe this is all about pay, not for 1 minute. But have a listen to what she says.
Members, you can be very proud. These results are strong and they are clear. We've now entered a defining moment in our history, and our fight will continue as long as it takes to win justice for the nursing profession and for our patients. I know you felt a range of emotions when voting in this ballot. We don't want to have to take strike action. It's always our last resort, but we've been left with no other choice. I also know that some of you will be disappointed that your place of work, despite the hardest of campaigning, has narrowly missed out this time. But for the first time in the Royal College of Nursing's 106-year history, members in hundreds of NHS workplaces across the UK are now able to take action. There are 2 things to keep in mind as we enter the next phase of our campaign. The first is that your patients will be kept safe. We are doing this for them too. The second is that governments and ministers have the power to stop this at any point by doing what's fair and what is right. I urge them to look in the mirror and ask, how long will they force nursing staff to follow this route? Members, We are entering a tough stage, but you can be proud, confident, and know the public is right with you. Thank you for what you've each done to get us here. Stay firm, stay together, and we will win this.
Now, Pat Cullen is about to leave, so she, in my opinion, is gaslighting, and then she's going to disappear. And what they're actually doing is they're offering nurses tea and coffee. That's actually the next stage of it, is we'll let you have some tea and coffee. This is not a pay deal. This is not, in my opinion, a tea and coffee deal. This is, we have been historically not looking after nurses for years. In my day, we gave them accommodation if they needed it. And if they did need it, as well as accommodation, they would get transport to work. They would get creche facilities. They'd get transport. But you know what? Nurses are quitting now. They're quitting not because of the fact that they want to leave nursing, because they don't. The majority don't, and they're brokenhearted. They really are sad. They're being asked to do things that, in their opinion, are not safe. So where Pat Cullen's saying your patients will be safe, your patients aren't safe now. That's why the nurses are being driven out. But we've got to look at why they're being driven out. What is motivating them to be driven out? And of course, many people have emailed me and said, you know, Rishi Sunak has announced that robots are going to replace nurses. And of course, that's exactly what is going to happen. Robots apparently are going to replace the nurses that are being driven out. They're not striking, they're being driven to this, literally. And then if we go one stage on, we can see that actually The Guardian, thank goodness, has highlighted patient safety. So for once, we've got patient safety on the headlines, but this is really what the deal's about. But oh, don't panic, let's bring the army in. Well, really? Bringing the army in? We've got armies of nurses out here, armies of nurses like me, that can't get back into the NHS because there's so much paperwork, it's so bureaucratic. And to be honest, I would be kicking off the second I walked onto a ward, because I wouldn't be able to keep stum. I'd have to be able to practice safely, and that's not what nurses can do. Nurses need to be looked after, so do paramedics. Paramedics' job is not to look after patients in A&E corridor. They're highly skilled people. So if we're not going to bring the army in, who else are we going to bring in? Oh, I know. Let's bring in the international nurses and the refugee nurses. We'll actually train those up. Now, this is very concerning for a number of reasons. I've spoken very recently to Roy Lilly, and Roy Lilly is a very wise man. Some of the things we may disagree with, but on this is absolutely, Nepalese nurses are being recruited in from the United Kingdom, and yet it's on a World Health Organization, not that I think that much of the World Health Organization, however, it's on a WHO red list, which means that there aren't enough Nepalese nurses in Nepal to service their population. So they're not really allowed to be shipped out to different countries, but for some reason we've shipped them out. But not only that, we're getting transition nurses. So we're getting nurses in from Nigeria, we're getting migrant nurses, refugee nurses, all of these people to replace the nurses, our homegrown nurses that are being driven out. And of course, these inexperienced, possibly underqualified nurses that may not be able to speak English won't be able to challenge the system like us old school nurses would like to do. So, you know, this is getting beyond a joke. And we've even got to the point now where we're telling GPs are telling patients to call a cab. Don't wait for an ambulance, call an Uber. Well, you know what? If you're on the floor, you've had a stroke, you've had a heart attack, how are you going to get in the back of a cab? Does a cab have a blue light on it? What happens if the driver's distracted? Has anybody thought this through? It's completely insane. I mean, what more can I say? I mean, this is going to be a Christmas that we'll never forget, because there isn't going to be, well, the health service is gone, but what there is left is also going to be gone in December, just before Christmas, at overwhelm.
Debbie, if I may, I'll just respond to that and say, in my opinion, this has been extremely well thought through, because the objective is to create the chaos and the breakdown in the NHS. This is another step that's being taken to create that breakdown. So it's deliberate, it's calculated, it's orchestrated. And if we remember some years ago, the Tory Danny Kruger spoke out publicly. It was reported certainly in The Guardian when he said that the Tories plan to introduce a period of what they called creative destruction in the public sector. And what he explained around that statement was the idea was to have transformational change, but first you had to destroy existing arrangements. And this is what the Tories under Rishi Sunak now are doing. But this policy has been running for a great many years.
But don't